Good morning. I'm sitting here with my big ass coffee. Second big ass coffee with tons of butter in it. And since it's almost Halloween and coming up on Dia de los Muertos, this is going to be I like to talk about death. So, trigger warning. 18 plus for this one. If that triggers you, scroll. There is a story that I shared on Cosmic Salon, and if you want to hear the whole story, you can. This will be leading up to it and after it, but I'm not going to share the part that I shared on there. So if you want to hear that part, you'll have to wait for that episode to drop. Cosmic Salon with Niche. This is what led up to it. I had an NDE, which was caused by a accidental, maybe not so accidental, overdose. And I've only shared this with a few people because people get triggered. Even therapists get weird about this stuff. And this is what made it real for me. So in the fall of 2018, so about a month ago, 7 years ago, I was determined to get off this seizure medication because I had a brain tumor that was giving me seizures, and I was on a bunch of other medications, hormone medication, therapy, and I had broken my neck, and I had lots of back problems, and so I was on opiates for many years, and I was drinking myself essentially to death at the time. But I had determined to not refill that seizure medication because it was doing bad stuff. And I was continuing to have seizures. It wasn't stopping anything. So I stopped, and for like 3 days, I did not sleep. I was just seizing and seizing and seizing. And I was determined I had to sleep. So I took muscle relaxer and then an opiate, and I was drinking on top of that. And still, I was not doing it, and it kept, seizing. So I took another muscle relaxer, and I had been drinking. I couldn't remember if I'd taken the opiate or not. I think it was oxycodone at the time. And took another one. And I could feel my body start to shut down. I'm like, uh-oh, this is not good. And at a certain point, this is the middle of the night, at a certain point I realized, uh-oh, like, I'm checking out. And I texted my daughter and my ex and said, I love you, thinking that this is going to be the end. And I just kept praying, God, don't let my daughter be the one to find my body. And I resigned, set it down. That's all I could do physically at the time. And then I resigned to, that was it. I was going to go out. And I felt my body shut down. And all of a sudden, I was in a different place. Now, I started seeing fractals and connections and how everything's connected, and the decisions I'd made were affecting other things. And it was this I don't know if you'd call it a radical life review, but it was kind of a radical life review. And then I had this experience that it wasn't the way that I'd heard NDEs described. There was no void. There was no light at the end of the tunnel. There was no Jesus that showed up, or Buddha, or Ascended Master. Although there was that conversation with God kind of thing. And if you want to hear that part of the story, you'll have to wait for that conversation on Cosmic Salon to drop. But what made it real for me was when, clearly I'm still here, so it didn't take. What made it real for me, because for a while I was like, that was a hallucination. But I slammed back in my body, and when I looked back up, I saw this rainbow of my body, like coming back down into my body when I was slammed back into that bed. And as that happened, I got consciousness, and as that happened, the phone on my bedside popped on. And that, I realized, there's something external to me that actually is happening. It takes something to wake up your phone. And it wasn't just like a bump had hit it, because it was on a bedside table away from the bed on a concrete floor that, there was something electrical in the room that happened when that happened. So clearly, my time was not done. It made me reevaluate a lot of things. Everything, essentially. After that, I still did not want to be here. It did not cure me of I don't know what I have to say on these apps, because suicidal ideation was not cured. I still wanted to check out at that time because I could not get a hold of those addictions to the opiate and the alcohol after that. And I was still on a crap ton of other medications that were clearly not serving me, not getting me healthy. I was over 250 pounds and completely miserable. So at that point, it was this week, in fact, 7 years ago, that I checked myself into, because I spent Halloween in the mental institution. And that was where I experienced true schizophrenia. I roomed with a guy I called Milton Wadhams. I don't know if you've seen Office Space, but Milton is the guy in the basement who looked out. He used to have the window, and he saw the squirrels, and they were married. And this is the guy I roomed with. He was like that. He would talk to himself, and he was very quiet, but he was kind of mumble to himself, and no thought. Anyway, there was that spectrum of schizophrenia. And then, on that same wing, there were two guys that thought they were Satan. One was devil, one was Satan. One guy had a very cool tattoo wrapped around his head of barbed wire. It looked neat, but boy, that was some serious wake up to the spectrum of mental illness. Like, there was depression, hard depression, and then there was guys hearing voices. And the fear of being in those rooms with people that you could actually see in their eyes. They had checked out, and there was somebody else in there. And after talking to Jerry Marzinski and listening to his interviews, and how his experience with treating those kinds of people, you could tell that there was really something else in there. And years later, I started seeing that kind of thing in family members that I was trying to repair things with after I had gotten clean. So anyway, after the mental hospital, I went to a detox in Houston, and then a 30-day rehab there. And got clean off of those things, all medication, because I wasn't about to go do the brain surgery. I had watched, because these are the choices they were giving me. I'd watched some video of the actual surgeries and how they go up into your septum, through your nose, into your brain, and pull that out. And I had heard stories from people that had either brain damage from that or pituitary damage from that, because it was the tumor is called a pituitary adenoma, and it sits right between your frontal lobe and your brain. And many times there is damage of one or both of those things. So I was not going to do that. So I figured, well, I'm going to get healthy or die. Either way, I'm not going to live like that. So I have shared this part that I radically changed my diet. I meditated and started exercising, starting walking in the desert during the day and at night, and which started a whole path of working out. And anyway, within a very short amount of time, after getting off all of the medications, I had lost 50 pounds. You know, I share this story. Lost a lot of weight. But as we're coming up to Dia de los Muertos, and I'm thinking about death and our acceptance of our mortality, I just wanted to share that, because I've tried to share this with people. People get very uncomfortable when you start talking about this, especially the older people are, and how they have not dealt with their own mortality. And that's our own journey, you know. I get it, you know. It's scary, especially if you've been programmed in this Christian mentality that it's either heaven or hell, and if you haven't lived a perfect life and you don't have salvation from Christ, that you're going to hell. Or there's void. If you're an atheist, like, I get it, there's fear of death. Those of us who have, I know there's more people. And then this is another thing that I've realized is there's a whole spectrum of people that, how they take this from other people. Either they're triggered and they don't want to hear it, or they hear it and they want to be that. So they start faking a story. Oh yeah, me too. I did that. That happened to me. And then you can kind of tell. If you've been through that experience, you can tell. You can't fake these kinds of things. It's like addiction. You can't fake it. I mean, you can for a little while, but it'll come out. And those who have been through it, and you can kind of tell addictive behaviors from those of us that have gone through stuff and gotten over it. You know, you can fake it for a little while, but you can't fake the truth. In fact, that's one thing that I realized is that once you start getting radical about your own truth, you start seeing the lies that people live in their lives, because you're like, oh yeah, that was me. I was living a lie. Anyway, I just want to share that part. And when the Cosmic Salon drops, I'll share that, and you can hear the rest of that story. But everything's fractilinear. We're all connected. And that's kind of the point of the whole 6 degrees of Frank Zappa and that kind of thing. And conspiracy and all that kind of stuff. And people see those conspiracy things as entertainment. And when people try to use people's trauma as entertainment, it's a very nefarious thing. And when people fake it, and they have yes men around them who are just reiterating that narrative, or they're doing it for money because they know that sensationalism gets views, and views get money. That's a con. And that person is a con artist and a cosplayer. Anyway, I think that's long enough. If you have had those kind of stories, I think this is long enough. I'm only going to be able to share this to YouTube. If you've had those kind of stories, drop them. If you're faking it, reevaluate yourself. If you're not faking it, every day, reevaluate yourself. And that's how we get clean. That's how we get, and I'm not saying just of addictions and chemical usage and stuff like that, chemical dependencies and things like that. It's not just that. It's getting true with yourself, honest with yourself. And subscribe to my Patreon also. HG Traverser. I think it's called the Mystic Path right now. I didn't mean to use that. It was a placeholder, but I guess it works for now. Not Patreon, but Substack. I'll cut that part out. Subscribe to my Substack. I'll share this on there. And I just want to start this discussion because I've been thinking about Dia de los Muertos and our mortality, and people start to consider their mortality this time of year from now until New Year's, because this is the time when most of those events happen for people. It seems to ramp up between now and Christmas. Anyway, yeah, Substack, HG Traverser. It's called the Mystic Path right now, but that name may change. But look up HG Traverser on Substack, Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube. And subscribe to those. From now until Christmas, I'll be probably posting more. Anyway, I want to start the discussion, and I want to hear yours. Because I know there's more people out there that have these experiences, because I met a few of them in rehab and in 12 steps therapy and groups can also be addictions. Anything can be an addiction. I don't know where I'm going with this. Anyway, I just wanted to share that part. And hope you get something out of it. And I'll talk to you soon. Ciao.